Thanks for joining us. So my name is Paul McSherry, if you don't know me. I'm an independent VMware consultant, bit of a VMware geek, VCDX 234, and I've decided over the last couple of weeks I've been sharing a few bits and pieces in the mentoring space of the VCDX, and I'm a bit of a podcast freak, and there doesn't seem to be much about design in the world. So I thought it's probably best to get something started, and also it came about out of a conversation with a few mentors that we should build our things together and start making joint efforts. So this is the first seminar based on the Defence Day, seeing that a few people who are online are going in the room next week. Thought it might be a good start, but then a bit later on we're going to do this quite regularly and talk not only about the VCDX, but maybe about other things such as vendors, what they really do, taking away the FUD, going into from a design perspective, use cases and so on. So I thought I'd call it Adventures in Infrastructure Design and hopefully do it monthly. So thank you for joining. We've got a bit of a packed house, and I'm extremely honoured to have several VCDXs online with me. So we've got quite a few famous names in my opinion. We've got Lior, or LK. We've got Rebecca, George, and newly minted, congratulations, Shady as well. Yay!
Thank you, guys.
How you doing there, Shady?
I'm fine.
You are newly minted.
You know.
How does it feel now?
I need to add a bit here that Kieran Reid is also here. A big hi to Kieran.
Hi, Kieran. How you doing? I didn't notice you there. How you doing? We've got another VCDX in the room. How you doing?
Is not in the voice, I think, it's not in the conference call.
He's too overwhelmed.
Oh, he's hiding out, isn't he? He can't wait for the mock defence with Bally. Coming up later. We're just going to give him abuse all the way through the session, so we'll be fully prepared for next week, I'm sure. Kieran's shy, apparently. So anyway, thank you for joining. There's much more people than I thought there would be, so that's really cool. For people who haven't joined, I've had a few people email me and message me. We're going to record the session, but what I'm going to do is that I'm honoured to have a few people that are going to go through some strategies. So the agenda is we've got some mentoring readiness, a little bit of Quizlet, all around the defence, the last few days before the defence when you go in the room. We're going to go through some defence strategies, chat about what we learnt along the way. We're going to do a design scenario discussion, talk about how you'd approach the design scenario, what changes, silly questions that people have just before the defence, things to avoid, those kind of things. And then any questions that you have, please jump into the chat and try and make this a two-way discussion. And then we're going to go a few challenges. I've written a couple of mock design scenarios if people want to do them. Or if you want to do a mock defense, you're perfectly welcome. There's plenty of people in the room. So probably the first 30 minutes or so, maybe a bit more, is a presentation. And then we'll fall into a connect. I'm sure there'll be a VCDX here to do that. Yeah. So if we can hand over, the first person we want to talk to is Lior. So we've got mentoring, Quizlet, and post-defense discussions. I'm going to hand over presentation. Are you ready to take over, mate?
Yeah.
So I'll send you as the and over to you. There you go. Just pop over.
All right. So, not sure what you guys are seeing.
Nothing at the moment from my point.
All right, just a sec. So, all right, let me know when this is popping.
I can see your screen now, mate.
Awesome. So, hi guys, hi everyone. It's great to be here. I've been talking to Paul for quite some time around this seminar. And by the way, Shady, congrats, newly mint. We go a bit way back. I remember we talked like, I don't know, a few months back. So congrats, mate. So who am I? My name is Lior. You can call me LK. No one knows how to pronounce my name, so it's just LK. That's okay. I'm an Azure Cloud Solution Architect at Microsoft, and the first question that pops is, what the hell VCDX is doing in Microsoft? To be honest, in Microsoft, no one cares, but it is all good. I'm here to give back like other did to me. So I'm a double VCDX number 230 for CMA. That was my first one, and the DCD was the second one. And I'm out for grabs. So if you want to shoot me a question around the scenario and around the process, besides on what I'm gonna explain here, please do. So I'm the first one to pass the remote defense, and I actually wrote a few blog posts around that. So that was also another experience that I can share with you guys. So today, in the past 2 years, I took a step back from, virtualization per se. So not because I don't like it, just because of the fact that I wanted to advance myself. So today I spent most of my time with Docker, Mesos, Kubernetes, Ansible, Terraform, and as you see, other buzzwords that looks good on my CV. I blog at imworkvirtual.com and I tweet at Lior Kamrat. Most of the time I'm just writing nonsense, but it is what it is, right? So, all right. So what is it that I'm going to cover? So my question is, my process is a bit like different in a sense. I went through the process like everyone is doing. So I failed the first attempt, and then got it right on the second one. Actually, me and Paul was, he was in the next room in my first defense. I'm not sure which one it was for Paul, so I have a set of tools that I collected along the way, which I wanted to share with you. I have some methodologies that maybe will be new to you guys, maybe not. You don't have to use it, but it worked for me. So I just wanted to share it with you. So I'm going to talk about mentoring session readiness, the importance of thoroughness, and how important it is to be ready for talking to others during this process and not just the panelists. Scrum your VCDX. That's a new concept that I'm developing for the VCDX, but it's not just VCDX related, and I'm going to talk about it. Quizlet all day long. What to do 5 minutes after the defense, and that's a very important one. And I'm going to talk about it and my 5 best advices, the way I see it. So the first one, so come ready, no bullshit, respect your time first and your mentor and others people's time. And what I mean by that is, as you can see, the name Greg is probably, he's a rock star among the VCDX community. Greg Robson was my mentor for the first time and then for the second time. So when I failed my first attempt, Greg passed his second one. And when I passed my second attempt, he was my mentor throughout the process. What I want to say by that is, when you are doing those sessions, those mentoring sessions, it's not just, just for fun. First of all, you have your own agenda and you have your own time constraints, which is fine. But, when you are working with others, with other mentors, with other people, come ready. And what I mean by that, and you can see by 2 screenshots, and there is a reason those 2 screenshots are a mess. That's just my thought brain dump that I did throughout the process. And I'm going to talk about brain dump later on, but I just wanted to emphasize the fact that before each session, you need to come with agenda, not just, this is not a freestyle kind of thing. Well, it is to some degree, but you need to have some sort of structure, some sort of process that you need to go through with your mentor. He's not there to, to pass it for you. He's not the one doing the defense panel, but there is a lot of things that you guys can throw at each other. And you can see here that those are, it's a mess. So you can see things like, there is no certain order. So I'm talking about Quizlets, and that was actually my first mentoring session with Greg for my second attempt, not for my first one. And I'm going to talk about Evernote later on. Those two screenshots are coming from Evernote and what it means. But what I want to say is that if you will come with questions and if you will come with certain amount of data before the sessions, before the mentoring sessions, and it doesn't have to be like, not mentoring session doesn't have to be, a mock defense, doesn't have to be a design scenario. It can just be brainstorming, setting up a 45 minutes brainstorming session. We'll do magic. So just come prepared and respect others people's time. That's my first advice. What to do with this data that coming out of it, I'm going to talk on. So be thorough. I wanted to share with you two screenshots. So for my first shot and for every session that I did, every VCDX mock, every brainstorming session, every design scenario, and everything that's got to do with my preparation, I recorded it. So I have the luxury of working with Skype for Business, but it can be anything, whatever. What I wanted to say is that you can see for my first shot and for my second shot, you can see, like, I recorded every session. Everything is well organized. I had to come back to my recordings and talk about it and try to understand what went wrong, what do I need to improve, what is missing, those kind of stuff. If you will record your session, be thorough, like work in an organized fashion, you will see that everything will be much clearer to you. Also, it will give you motivation to keep those folders, keep them growing. For me, that worked. In between, and that's the, I'm not an old school kind of guy. I'm not I love tech, but as you can see, I use a simple, tape recorder. I use it while I jog. I use it while I just, walk around. It was in my backpack. Every random thought I have, and obviously it can be your phone, right? It's just much easier with those kind of devices. It's much more accessible. With your phone, when you are working with your phone, someone is calling, interrupting the recording, whatever. All I'm saying is that those devices are recording in MP3 format or MP4, I don't remember, but it's easy. So I just walked around with that. It's funny, I know, but it worked. After I did that, I returned home, dumped all the recordings to my laptop, and then started to work on that. What happened with those recordings is those stuff that I just mentioned. So random thoughts became agenda for mentoring sessions. That's what happened. That's the flow. So that's what I did. So that was in between. So I wanted to talk to you about this concept that I've been working on, and if you're coming from the dev world, Scrum is not something that is stranger to you. But for those of you who are not know what Scrum is, it's basically a project management methodology and development cycle and application life management methodologies that you are using in order to organize your development sprints. So sprints are in development are like 2 weeks period of time, 3 weeks, something like that. It differs, but that's the idea. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you a demo and what I do using Trello. And so if you're not familiar with Trello, Trello is it's a SaaS platform that meant to help you organize your thought. By the way, I'm using Trello not just for techie stuff. I'm using Trello to organize my my house, my house stuff, basically the stuff that my wife is telling me to do. So that's what I do. So I just wanted to show you this platform and just like doing a quick walkthrough with you. So Trello is a SaaS platform, like I mentioned, and what you see here is a board. So a board is basically a set of cards. So every one of those pieces called a card, and you can create a new board. It's not a problem, and it's a free platform. You can upgrade it and get like extra features, but to be honest, the free tier is more than enough for those kind of practices. But if you want to open a board, just create a board. It's okay. By the way, if you are doing the VCDX with someone else, this is a brilliant tool because you can share boards. You can track each other work. It's great. So so just work with that. Try work with that. So let's just do a quick overview. And those things that I put here. Some of them are made up, and some of them are actually something that I did in my design. So for example, the sketches that you see, the diagrams are actually part of my real design. So let's just go over that. And this is just a set of idea. Obviously, everyone has its own idea and its own thing, but it's just an example. So I put here a card called the network design. And here, what I did is, as you can see, I opened a checklist and I just wrote some stuff, like random stuff, for me to make sure I cover. So I just wrote some random network stuff and throwing some buzzwords into the air. So BGP, VXLAN, spanning tree, and LTCP. Just an example. It could have been like check ping for that matter. It doesn't matter. The idea is for you to see this type of card, right? So in the in-progress diagrams, which I created, right? So I just go and add a card and just add those stuff in it. I put some other card. So for example, in the in-progress, you can see vSphere payload cluster E6 host logical network design. And within this card, what I did, I put a attachment. This is my actual PPT for that one. So what I can do is just open it, and obviously you can download it. It's easy access. I don't know why it showed the white screen, but whatever. So you get the idea. In the pods relationship overview, you can see that you can put a JPEG, so you will have a visual notice on what you guys are seeing, right? So what you can do, so let's say I just finished with the pods relationship overview. So what you can do is you can just move it to the completed diagrams easily. So this is a way to manage your work and manage your progress in a sense. Obviously, you can put due dates in those cards, which will follow your time frame and the way you want to, or when do you want to achieve something. Okay. So this is something that you should use. So if I put here a due date, you can just put a due date and it will work just fine, right? By the way, if you will have the Trello, like the Premier version or whatever they call it, you will have some other integrations with Outlook, with Project, with other stuff. But obviously, it sounds a bit overkill, but it is what it is. So as you can see, I'm just moving stuff around. In the in-progress task, I wanted to show you that I just put here, so watch and if you haven't watched that, the V Brown Gemia VCDX UA panel, although it's a bit oldie, I just wanted to show you the fact that you can also put a link. So if you have, like, instead of saving stuff in your bookmarks, what you can do is you can actually attach the links into a project kind of workflow, right? So instead of just saving random links in your bookmark folder, you can actually put links within the cards and then put a due date, and the phone application will notice you that, listen, you have to do this, this, and that, right? So it will bug you into the point that you will have to do that, right? So I just wanted to show you the example that you can also put a link here, right? And obviously, when you have completed task, that's it. I just make sure send Paul, although I didn't send Paul anything. I just wanted to show it to you guys that you can just like switch the cards between one board to another, right? It's pretty simple. It's easy. If you want to share it, no problem. You can create a team and you can make it a public board, right? If if red is not your color, feel free to put it at pink. It doesn't matter. So just wanted to show you Trello and just give you a quick taste of what it can do for you during the process. It's pretty easy. And by the way, the phone application is pretty cool. So this is a screenshot from the phone application, and what you just saw in my screen, this is taken from my phone. All right, so I just wanted to show it to you. All right, so going on to the next topic, so Quizlets, and you can see the link here that I put. I tweet a lot about Quizlet, especially regarding to VCDX. So every time the VCDX cycle is coming to its due date, in terms of the defense, I'm mentioning Quizlets, and I wrote a lot about it. In my first attempt, I didn't use Quizlets. There were many reasons, but the main one is that I didn't know it. So Greg, when he failed his first attempt, he also didn't use Quizlets, and then he discovered Quizlets, and I didn't know Quizlet in my first attempt, and then in my second one, he discovered it for me. What I want to talk about Quizlets is the fact that, and a few of you that went through the process with me, and we did some joint session and brainstorming, and I did some mentorship. I keep using Quizlets, and what you can see here on the right is the phone application. But let's see for a second and let's talk about the actual SaaS platform for it, right? So Quizlets. The entire idea with Quizlets is to expose yourself. Let's call it that way. And I'm going to talk about my advices, like in a sense, but like coming from mentally speaking point of view. But technically speaking, Quizlets is there to expose yourself. What I mean by that is, and if you learn for an SAT or whatever exam it is, you know that cards is something that you can work with. So Quizlets is basically a way to create your own test sets. So you can create a question and you can write an answer for it. So if I'll go here to the edit and go to edit mode and wait for it to pop. So you can see here that I just wrote random Quizlets. The main thing with Quizlets is that you need to accept the fact that you need to be honest with yourself and live and think like an analyst, actually. So you need to think, what are the questions you think you might be asked? And most of the time, when I'm talking to candidates, and I did it myself, this mistake, it stopped there. Like, I'm thinking like a panelist, but I'm not doing anything with that. So the idea with Quizlet is to put it in a sense and put it in a card. And then what you can do is you can, and by the fact you are writing it, that's just helping put it in your brain. But you can go back each time. The phone application is great as well, and just keep writing stuff. So at the end of my practice, at the end of my second attempt practice, I had 126 Quizlets just for the defense itself. I also did something for the scenarios, but let's talk about that for a second. So you can see here that I wrote some questions, like random questions that got to do with my design. And I had tons of stuff in my design. It was a big ass design, but I wrote a lot of questions that I thought, and guys, I'm promising to answer all the questions, but what I want to say is that I just put some questions that I thought a panelist will ask me. By the way, most of the questions, or well, not most, but a big part of the questions came from my mocks, actually. So after listening to the recordings in the folders that I show you, I just put the questions and start writing them. So the questions and the answers also help me to better know my design and dig deeper in a sense, right? So the fact that I didn't, give myself a pass and just fought with a question made me like be better prepared for the defense, all right? So what I did is put all those questions. So let's just go for a second to my defense, sorry, to my design scenario. So you can see here, and by the way, you can share those boards, you can share it with other people. And to be honest, I don't recommend that. Not just because of the fact that, collaboration is a good thing. If you're working with pairs, yeah, that makes sense to work together on those Quizlets. But one-person Quizlets will not be good for other. And sharing those, just making you work a bit, less harder, let's call it that way. And I don't believe in that system. That's the reason I think sharing those Quizlets between one another is not a good practice. So with my design scenarios, when I practice my design scenarios, I started to write the sentence that I want to say or the concept that I want to make. And obviously there are more things you need to do in terms of practice and everything. But I just wanted to make sure that I have the figure of speech. I just wanted to make sure that I have short, bulletproof answers for potential questions. And this is based on my mocks. So it was very easy for me to just write in those questions and start writing a lot of key points that I can elaborate on in the design scenarios. Because in the design scenarios, when you are showing extra knowledge, when you are showing that you can go deeper if you need to, right? And this is a very important one, only if you need to, you can do that just because of the fact that beforehand you created Quizlets that will help you maybe expand the question's horizons, right? If I can say it that way. So I hope that's something that you guys understand. You can go to my blog post around that and read more about that. It's pretty easy, and you can see here, this is the phone application. The same one, this is the same screen that you just saw. So you can go to Quizlet, start writing your cards, and that's it. And you will see how easy it is and how beneficial it is, right? So I really recommend you use Quizlet. All right. So, and this is a good story. When I finished my first attempt, it was in the UK. It was in States, new offices. I came to the UK. To make a long story short, I came to the UK after a week in VMworld in Barcelona. I was pretty fried, like all the flights, everything. VMworld was pretty busy. And then I came to the UK, spent some 3 days alone in the hotel room, and then got off to States. So, I know this is water under the bridge, but I failed the first attempt. The most important thing, and let's be honest here, I don't know how many candidates there are in this session that are going to do the defense. They're going to do the defense in next week or 2 weeks. I'm not sure when is the defense, but the most important part is to realize that you need to take 5 more minutes after the defense is over, and trust me, I know you will be in a meltdown. I know your head will be like, your mind will be fried. You just want to get out of there. Just want to go back and cry to your mommy. That's fine. But take 5 more minutes and do a brain dump. And when I'm saying brain dump, and again, I put a link here that I wrote. I wrote a blog post specifically around the brain dump. But let's just take it one step further for a second. So for those of you who are not familiar with Evernote, and Evernote is just one tool. There are so many tools that you can use. whatever you feel comfortable with. I'm a big fan of Evernote and SaaS application in general. So again, I put a screenshot with my Evernote in my phone. So let's talk about this brain dump for a second, all right? And I wanted to share with you what I did, and this is a real thing, all right? What I did 5 minutes after defense, all right? So 5 minutes after the defense, I got into the cab, and then what I did, I just opened Evernote and start doing this dump for everything I thought that went wrong, pretty much. And believe me, in the first attempt, I knew that I didn't pass. Like in my heart, I knew that I didn't pass. But if you are working so hard to get to the point that you want VCDX, you shouldn't be intimidated by the fact that you won't succeed in the first attempt. And, everyone can tell you that everyone that failed his first attempt and got it right in the second one or the third one, whatever, right? Doing this brain dump, you won't believe how much helpful it is when you will get back on the horse. And it will take some time to get back on the horse, trust me. But this is the reason you are doing brain dumps, because after the defense, everything is so fresh in your mind that it's easy to do this brain dump. The main idea is not to fall apart, all right? So you can see here that it's just random thoughts. What I did in my second attempt, I went back to my brain dumps and I started correlating those thoughts to my design document, all right? So you can see here for a second. So I had in my design, and let's just talk about it for a second. And you can see I'm not talking technical stuff here. It's just stuff around methodologies, but let's talk about it for a second. So in my design, I had very specific virtual CPU to virtual memory ratios. Those were based on, and I knew what were the ratios, and I actually knew what was the reason. It's not just something that came out of thin air. What I wanted to say is that in the defense, they asked me, all right, so why did you choose this ratio for virtual CPU? And I think it was 1 to 3, but whatever, it doesn't really matter. And I started to mumble. I started to, not knowing the answer, although I knew it, but I didn't have a bulletproof answer. So what I did, and I remember that because it took like 10 minutes for them to leave me alone on that subject. So I knew that I had a problem there. So in the cab, I wrote vCPU, vMem ratios. And then when I got back to the second attempt, I went to my documents, and in page 441, and you can see this was the biggest design, I went back and then correlate the thought to the design document. What I did after that is started writing the Quizlets, explore it in a sense, like I started learning more around those ratios, and just the end result was the fact that I had a bulletproof answer, right? So that was something that was very important to me. So the key takeaway from this one is do a brain dump, don't get your head to meltdown, and just accept the fact that it's okay if you fail the first attempt. You don't know that after the defense, but you have to take this under consideration, right? It doesn't mean that you're not good. It just means that you are thorough, right? So I highly recommend do a brain dump and don't skip that part. Great. So my 5 best advices, and let's wrap her up in a sense. Think like a panelist. And I know it's easy to say, but it is what it is. If you will think like a panelist, and it's not that hard when you come to think about it, but if you will do a lot of mocks, you will start thinking like a panelist. You will start thinking about the way they are asking the questions, what they are looking for, how they are connecting the dots, what they are missing, and if you are thinking like a panelist, and this is another thing that Quizlet can help you, one of my main strategies was to put landmines in my design or in my presentation. So what I mean by that is that I knew that I had some points that I wanted them to ask me about. And this is something that is very important. Don't be afraid to put landmines, all right? So if you know that you can answer something, you can put honey traps, right? That way you will score more points. If you will think like a panelist on one hand, and you will have Quizlets, recordings, whatever on your end, you will see that putting landmines will be easy. And this is like, you can score tons of points using that strategy. Be honest with yourself, shortcuts will not fly. So here's the thing, everyone's are techie, but when you are working in your day-to-day job, and it's okay if you are bullshitting a customer. It's okay if you are cutting corners. That's fine. Everyone does that. With the VCDX, the thing is that you have 75, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever. They are there to see that you have a structure and you are not bullshitting no one. So be honest with yourself means that you need to make sure that you're not bullshitting yourself, because that's the only way that this will hurt you for sure. So I just wanted to make this point very clear. So what I like to call think deep but execute light. You don't have time and you need to score as many points as you can. I like to compare it to a video game. If you are, like me, born in the 80s, so arcade was part of my childhood and most of my childhood. So if you remember arcade games, if you played a lot, you know that you had to think a lot in those games, right? But there was no time for you to make mistakes. I think that's the same thing. Quizlets, and when I'm saying using Quizlets, and I keep repeating myself, I know, but it's very important, will help you to think deep and execute light, because it's okay that you have a heavy topic. No one expects you, in the real life to talk about, I don't know, VXLAN or NIOC terminology or vCloud Director organizations or vRealize automation organizations in 1 minute. No one expects you that, because you have time, you have customer meetings, and it's all good. But with VCDX, you need to execute light. So that means that don't expect to give a full answer, but give the right answer and make it very, very clear, right? The back end of that answer will be very deep, obviously, but the execution needs to be light. So using Quizlets, I think we drilled on that one, and it's very important, but obviously one of my 5 best advices. Number 5 is I think it's the most important one. You are not the big dog in this yard. Huge ego will be your downfall. And that, in that industry, we are working with customers, we are the customers. Everyone thinks that they are know-it-all, but at the end of the day, you are going back to your Twitter, to your LinkedIn, talking with your peers, and not with your customers or whatever. And you know that, unless you are Michael Jordan, you're not the best. And that's okay. That's fine. We're all human. But the problem with this industry is the ego. Everyone wants to show that they know everything. With the VCDX, when you are embracing the humble approach, you will see that it can actually help you to pass, because when you are going through an humble approach, you will see that you can absorb so much more if you're not in that approach, okay? So it's very important. Kill it with fire means that, don't be afraid to unleash on the panelist. If you know your design, there's not a problem, right? I know it's easy to say, I understand, but at the end of the day, you are telling a story, okay? So it's very important for you to tell a story, but to be humble during the process. And then when you are getting to the defense, stay humble, but execute light, leave your ego out the room, and think like them. That's it. So this is my end of my presentation. It meant to be very lightweight. No techie stuff. I know you guys are studying hard and everything is good, but I just wanted to, share with you some of the things that I experienced along the way in this journey. That's it.
Thank you very much, Alke. That's really informative. I think some of the things that I noticed you talked about, I can relate to immediately. I saw there's a few other VCDXs on the call talking very similar. I think Quizlet helped me from a point where I put all my design decisions in there, along with my design justifications and impacts. I'll just flick through them, literally 10, 15 minutes, over and over and over again. And when I was talking to the panelists, when they mentioned, why did you do something, it was just there. And very similar to very similar to yourself. I didn't like Quizlets when I first saw them. I didn't use them. Then I failed the VCDX. Then I actually forced myself to get into this, admitting that I don't know it, going back and revisiting things from the first principles. And it just exposed the areas that I was weak on. And that allowed me to plug it. So I think I can relate to a lot of things there. I think that's really superb. Thank you for putting that together. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Cool. So if you don't mind passing over the presenter back again, if you don't mind, and I will. Anyone got any questions specifically on the presentation to Alke? I think there was one from Ballet around his CMA. I think if you don't mind, what was the question there, Ballet?
You can take the session, by the way, Paul.
Can I call?
Hi, LK. Basically, my question was, you did the CMA first and then the DCV.
Correct.
That's kind of the opposite way around to what everybody says you should do it. So how did you find that? And
how cool I am, I know.
Yeah.
So, all right, let me explain. So, when I started my project, my documents, I was shooting for a double from the get-go. And I know it's maybe hard to believe, but that's what I did. So when I did my design, and it was based on vCloud Director, I didn't feel complete without putting all the vSphere stuff, just because of the fact that I wanted to see how all the dots are being connected. Also, I knew that talking about vCloud Director without talking about the vSphere layer didn't make any sense to me. So what I did, I wrote the documents including both the vSphere and the cloud stuff. That was the reason the document that I had was like 400 pages. That was the reason behind that. And, I felt very good with that. I knew that I will not be, vSphere, I promised myself vSphere will not be my downfall. Although I knew vSphere and vCloud Director very good, I didn't want like very generic vSphere stuff to be my downfall. So when I did the CMA, and then going for the DCV, to be completely honest, was way more easy because I already prepared for a DCV during my CMA. I hope that answered your question.
No, that does. Thank you very much.
Excellent, cool. Thank you very much, Alke. It's been great listening. The next person on our agenda is also a recently minted VCDX, Rebecca. I hand over to you. We're going to talk about the defense side of things, so more about the design defense rather than the actual design scenario. And I've got so many people, I didn't think I'd have this problem, looking for the names to pass over the presenter baton to. Just handing over now.
Rebecca is the first lady.
No, I'm not.
To me, you are.
We can pretend, but
all right.
But I'm not. Yeah. Well, and technically, Melissa has a lower number than me, so we defended the same week, but she got a lower number. So
Technicals.
Yeah. You know, I defended first though, right? Because I had to go through and fail once to figure it out. Looking for where my slides are. Here we go.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. And once you've gone through it, the process is obvious. But before you get it, it's not so obvious at all.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was, I had no idea what to expect. I went in there, I failed, and I went, oh, okay, I get it now. And then the second time, I was pretty confident I would pass, but that's obviously not the cheapest or most fun way to do the VCDX.
That is true.
Waiting for my slides to load. So I might be better off just sharing my screen. Yeah, let's just share the screen. It'll be dangerous though. Who knows what I have on my desktop. All right.
Okay, let's come up now. Me.
All right. Can you see slides?
Yeah, can do.
Yeah.
Or do you see a bunch of work emails?
No, we can see your slides, or I'll be lying to you.
I know you guys want to read my very interesting email, but
What is Rubik doing another round? What?
Really?
No.
It's on Twitter already. It's on Twitter.
I'm putting myself in mute.
Yeah.
Come on. I'm putting myself.
Yeah, it's on Twitter. You know it's true. So yeah, just a kind of a quick introduction. I followed Lior's format. So I'm Rebecca. I currently am working as technical marketing at Rubric. And no, Mr. Guarino, you may not have any swag from Rubric. It looks like there's a heckler in here, Paul. I'm going to need you to kick Brett Guarino out.
I think you might have to, yeah.
So, VCX 243. So I'm the inverse number from Paul. He's 234. I'm 243. And quick kind of mention of my blog and my Twitter. I wouldn't follow me on Twitter though. I mostly just make fun of Brett and tweet Beyonce pictures. So, kind of wanted to cover kind of three things here. So the first thing is I looked. I was originally just going to cover only the defense, but Paul shared with me some kind of demographic information about the audience, and it looks like about half, maybe a little bit more, are actually still in the writing process. So I wanted to cover just a little bit about writing. So the first thing is be concise. You want to answer whatever it is you're trying to answer, what your design decision is, and why you made that design decision, but you don't need 40 pages for your design decision. Okay. I've read a couple of designs recently that are 300 and 400 pages. If it really needs to be 300 and 400 pages, awesome, but sometimes less is more. For example, kind of skipping down to the third bullet point, I've seen several designs that have pages and pages and pages of all these design options. For example, I read one for DTM recently that said, well, here's app volumes, and here's what app volumes can do. Here's ThinApp, and here's everything ThinApp can do. And also, here's some third-party alternatives. And then at the very end, it said, by the way, we chose this one option, and here's why. And what they wrote about the design decision and the justification for that design decision was maybe a paragraph, but they had 4 pages discussing all the options that they didn't make. Okay? It's important to know the options that you didn't make, but the focus for your design document should be on your design. So what you decided and why. Grammar and spelling, it's more important than you think, especially when you're spelling VMware wrong or VMware features wrong. I've seen that quite a few times. Yeah, so somebody said, so not like a VMware set, right, or just VMware design. And that's correct. Remember that you're getting graded on what you submit. So that means that your panelists or whoever is grading your design has to weed through every word that you write to score points. So if you're writing as much or more about the things you didn't do rather than the things you did, that's probably not helping you score points. Okay. So when you look at, like the sets, for example, they have a ton of information about all the choices you could make and very little information about the choice you did make. That's really not something you want to emulate. Don't feel like you need to copy a VMware validated design or a VMware set, right? Feel free to create your own format. I've seen some diagrams and tables recently that are interesting, to say the least. The other thing is too is like be professional. So I've seen some designs recently that had that were in Comic Sans, and the diagrams were in Comic Sans. But please don't, just don't. But what are you trying to portray with this table? I've seen tables, for example, that have a ton of like performance information, but there's no text in or around that table that describes what it is that I should be getting out of this. Okay, everything that you write should be for a purpose. Okay, so make sure that you are clearly portraying what that information is. And the last thing is be thorough. Make sure you're covering all of the blueprint pillars. Okay, and this is going to be something that I'm going to describe in a little bit more detail towards the end. And and this is something that I can tell you from experience. My VCDX partner is in here harassing me right now, but our design, our first draft of the design that we sent out, we didn't really have a BCDR security section, to be honest, because we tried to keep our design to real world. In that we kept it almost exactly how it was for the customer. And the problem there was it didn't really meet all of the pillars of the blueprint. So our first kind of set of comments coming back was, you can't just pretend like there's no BCDR. You have to have a BCDR plan. Just like, yes, your environment's low security, but you still have to discuss security. And then my last kind of piece of advice when it comes to writing is don't be afraid to get input very early on. And that's something that I will absolutely admit openly that I didn't do. And my partner wanted to do it, but I will be honest, I was the one who was like, no, because I'm a little bit of the OCD perfectionist where I don't want you to see my work until I'm ready for you to see my work, right? So I feel like it's perfect. And then I want you to tell me how perfect it is, right? Or tell me what's wrong with it. And I think my partner and I would have been better suited early in the journey, kind of writing the conceptual model and then going, hey, can you provide me a little bit of feedback on this 10 pages that I wrote, right? Or, hey, can you look over networking while I'm starting to write storage? Now all of it may make sense at that point because you don't have the full picture, but it quickly helps you identify things like, for example, I see a lot of times people write something as a requirement, but it's actually a constraint. And I see things that are constraints that are actually requirements and vice versa. And you can nip that, in the butt very early on instead of waiting until, 400 pages later, however long your document is. So don't be afraid to get input early. For the design defense itself, I'm going to go with be concise. Okay. Again, so be concise. Have your answers kind of pre-formulated a little bit. Okay. And this is something that you can waste a lot of time in your defense. You only have 75 minutes. Okay. You only have 75 minutes. So you need to cover all of those tenets of the blueprint, every single pillar of the blueprint in that 75 minutes. And you need to cover all of the qualities of each pillar of the blueprint in that 75 minutes. You don't have, and you're going to get questions, right? You don't have time to ramble on and on and on and on. And I'm guilty of having done this in mocks. I'm guilty of even sometimes, in my defense, having done this. But you want to answer the question thoroughly while still being concise. And it's hard to do, and it takes practice. Don't read the slides. Okay, the slides are there to either A, provide a diagram for you to use, or B, kind of be a reminder in case you kind of lose your train of thought. They're not meant for you to read from top to bottom. Okay, and that's something that I've been harassing a lot of people this round, and I know it's very easy to do when you're in WebEx, but please don't read the slides, right? Because the more you read the slides, the more likely you are going to get torn apart by the panelists because they're going to go, wow, does Rebecca even know her design? Because all she's doing is reading the slides to me. She must not know her design. I'm going to start asking her a bunch of questions. And with that, also, you need to speak at a moderate pace. Okay, something that I just realized, I'm talking actually a little bit too fast right now. And I just caught that as I was about to tell you, don't talk too quickly. You may be defending and 2/3 or even potentially 100% of your panelists don't speak English as a first language. and your defense must be in English, right? So now you're nervous, you're reading the slide, and you're talking very, very quickly, and they're having to translate, read the slide, listen to you, and score you at the same time. Okay, so take a deep breath, right? Use natural pauses. Don't read the slide. There's always like the water bottle trick. You know, I think Joseph Lodge has been talking about this in some of his VCDX workshops. And this is actually something that Brett, who's in the audience, told me when I first started teaching VMware courses. If you get asked a question and you're not exactly sure, right, or you need an extra second to think, or if you realize you're talking way too fast and you need to slow down, pause and take a sip of water. Okay. Now that can also backfire because if you drink your whole bottle of water, you're going to probably have to use the restroom halfway through the defense. But right, that's kind of a good way to get yourself back on track. The defense is not about talking tech. I know that seems counterintuitive since it is a VMware certification, but it's not about all the bells and whistles or exactly how the components work under the hood. It's more about the process. I see a lot of candidates in their slide deck, they put a design methodology slide at the very beginning. And every single time I go, why do you have a slide describing your methodology? The whole point of you being in there for 75 minutes for design defense and 45 minutes for design scenario is to prove you have a methodology. You're not proving you have a design methodology by reading a slide about design methodology. Okay? So your goal here is to describe your conceptual model and then talk about your logical design decisions that you made and why, and then tie that back. It met that requirement, or this had to be done this way because of this constraint, and it introduced this risk, and here's how I mitigated that risk. Okay, and that ties into my next bullet point about speaking VCDX. The goal is for you to prove that you are a VCDX, not to magically become one overnight, but to prove that when you walked in that room, you were already a VCDX, you just didn't have a number. Okay, so it's important that you're using the correct vocabulary. Right, so don't say, I decided to do this. Right, say, I made the design decision to do this, and I made that because of requirement, whatever. Right, just like the example I gave earlier. And do the same thing in your design scenario. Make design decisions and then point them back to the conceptual. Mocks. Lior did a fantastic job of talking about being prepared for mocks and taking notes and brain dumping. Do that. You are learning nothing if you do mock after mock after mock after mock. You're just repeating the same mistakes. There is such a thing as doing too many mocks. You should be doing a mock and then taking a day or two or even a week if you need to digest what happened. What did you do wrong? What did you do right? How can you improve? So one of the things that I did, and honestly, this came from talking to Lior. We had a Skype conversation for about an hour, hour and a half, and we talked about all kinds of things about preparing differently for your second defense. And he told me use flashcards, and I was like, I don't know. But then I ended up using flashcards, and they were brilliant. I used Quizlet. So what I would do is in my mocks, anything that I would get asked and I didn't have a good answer for, or worse, I rambled on and never really had that short, concise, clear answer, I would make a flashcard out of it. And what's brilliant about this is you put the app on your phone, and I don't have to pull out my design, I don't have to pull out my laptop, I don't have to pull out all this gear. I just look on my phone while I'm sitting in the airport terminal, right? Or while I'm sitting on the train, or when I'm out to dinner with my sister and she's boring. I can sit there and look at my Quizlet, and I can review flashcards anywhere at any time. And then the last thing about the defense is don't be afraid to ask questions back to the panel. They're going to purposely ask you vague questions sometimes. You can get clarification, okay? Nobody said you can't ask them back. Now, that's not to say that you can, I ask you a question, then you turn around and go, what do you mean? That's not going to work. But you can ask. Now, in reference to that networking question, are you talking about my virtual network or are you talking about my physical network? Right, for example, and they might go both, right? Or they might actually give you, hey, we're actually looking at your physical network. Explain why you did this, right? So frame that question back to them with some options and get some clarification, right? Because the worst thing is for you to have answered the question assuming that they're talking, for example, about your virtual networking, and then either get no points or worse, get this exact same question again right after you answered it. Okay, so don't be afraid to ask for clarification. And then the last thing is, what should my design or my design defense presentation cover? Now, I have absolutely no idea what the rubric looks like. Okay, I will be perfectly honest with you, but this is what I use when I'm going through and I'm reading designs, or when I'm sitting there doing mocks with people who are preparing for the defense. You need to cover all the pillars of the blueprint, right? So that's compute, network, storage, security, management, right? So your management infrastructure, business continuity, disaster recovery, and your virtual machines. And this, of course, will increase if you are doing DTM or CMA, right, or NV. And then you need to cover in each one of these things like sizing and capacity planning, cost, right? And then, of course, your ampers or ramps or parms or however you want to abbreviate it, but your different design qualities. You need to be talking about, for example, security when it comes to networking and storage, right? And then, of course, the obvious, hey, security, and so on. Just like you need to be talking about performance when it comes to each of these, because there's always a trade-off. I may have made a design decision in networking that negatively affects performance. Why? Justify it, okay? And is there a risk associated with it? How do you mitigate that risk? Right, so this should be kind of and there's probably more that I'm missing, okay? But this at a bare minimum should be what you are trying to cover in that 75 minutes. And it's really all I have, but I saw that there's a bunch of chat while I was talking, and I don't think I caught all of them. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks very much for that. Yeah, some really good points there. I think some of the main ones I felt there was it's a business decision. You know, a lot of people have been watching, and I was guilty myself, teaching benefits, because I always try and focus on the technical. It's a story. It's the business story. You're there to give the story of what you achieved and how you delivered this project, yeah? And what the business got, how you developed it, and those choices you made. It may not necessarily be the most elegant way, but as long as you can justify why you did it and it met the story that you presented them, that's it. I think the questions that come across in the presentations to me was they already know the answer. They're asking you for a reason. So I think some really good points there. Cool. So if you could pass over the presenter again, please, Rebecca, if you don't mind.
Sure.
And I think is there any questions for there at all on the platform here? Anyone want to have any questions? I think Brett will probably have about 20 just to wind her up. But
he's just trying to make my, life awful.
Probably.
I heard you have all the swag.
I'm never going to talk to you again.
Brett, I thought we fired you.
I thought it was a promotion. I didn't get the message.
Cool. Thank you very much. Cool.
I guess too high of a latency.
The panelists keep trying to fire me. I keep showing back up. I don't know.
That's the thing. If you keep turning up, they eventually give you it. I think that's my approach. just keep turning up.
I look forward to confirming this theory next week.
I'm sure you'll be good, mate. I'm sure you'll be on there this time. I'm sure you'll be there this time. We'll be at VMworld and we'll all be VCDXs. That's the plan from last year. That's the plan. I think we've now got Shady. I think our newly minted VCDX is going to give us a quick overview. Still in his head. He could do it all completely on whiteboard, I'm sure. He just come out of the defense.
Shady, I'm lighting a candle. Scenario.
Oh my God.
I'm lighting a candle for you.
That's it.
Thanks, Lior. You know how it feels, man.
That's it. All I do on you there, mate.
UK is the answer for all of us.
It does seem that way.
Yeah. So let me share the screen. Okay. Okay. So you see my screen, guys, right?
I can do indeed. Thanks very much.
Okay. So I'll try to be as concise as possible. Okay, because this is a very broad topic. Speaking about design scenarios and how to go through a design scenario in the defense. So first, I'll follow also Lior format. So I'm a VMware implementation engineer at that integrated solution. I'm the last VCDX number 249 after 3 attempts, and I will tell you why I put this here. Okay, in the last of this presentation. This is my Twitter, and I'm part of the vMusketeers group, so we can check our blog on vmusketeers.com. So let's speak about the design scenario. Okay, so what actually they are looking from you as a candidate in the design scenario, and that's true. Okay, they are looking for 3 things, and they score you for these 3 things. First of all, and the most important thing, your methodology as a designing expert or as a solution architect. Okay, so they want you to translate their business goals into conceptual model or conceptual design, then into logical, and then into physical, but you don't show them that physical layer at all in that design scenario, and you will come to that later. And also they are looking for consistent methodology, not just jumping between different layers of vSphere design. I'm talking here about DCD only, guys. Sorry, I cannot provide you with NV expertise or CMA or whatever. So all of this presentation I'm speaking about DCV part. Okay. So back to this slide. As I said, they are looking for consistent methodology. Do not jump between conceptual and logical back to conceptual and so on. That's not the way to go. Second is they are looking for your expert areas or the areas that you are expert in. And they know for sure that no one meant to be expert in everything. Okay, so don't worry if you are not so expert in security or not so expert in a storage area or whatever, but you have to show them that you are expert in handling your weak points. Like, you don't know something, you say, I don't know that, I have to check that up in this documentation on this area or in this book or whatever. Show them that you know your weaknesses. Show them that you can handle your weaknesses even in the design scenario. And if you don't know something, by the way, you can ask the panelists to check that out for you. Like in my design scenario, I had I don't have such knowledge about compliances and security compliances and so on. So there was no problem to ask them if this part or this design decision gonna help you achieving the full compliance. Would you please check the compliance guide for me? And this is okay to say that. Third thing they are looking for is your soft skills, and most of the people may not take care of these four. Okay, what meant by soft skills here is how consistent, how rational you speak. You speak correctly. I'm not speaking here about grammar or such thing, but I'm speaking about speaking professionally and consistent. Also, they may put you under pressure and may put you or may act like silly customers. Okay, and that's normal because they want to test your ability to handle silly customers in real life. Because VCDX is about becoming an expert solution architect. Expert solution architect means that he can or she can handle any silly customer in any situation. And that's what they're gonna test you about. They're gonna put you in pressure in your design defense, and they're gonna put you under pressure from a different perspective, like acting like silly customers. We don't know this, what you are speaking of. We don't know this terminology. We don't know this SRM acronym. What is the SRM? What is, and so on. Okay. So, what they don't look for in the room. And what I mean by this is that what you don't have to do in that room to spare you time to score more points. Okay, first of all, and I'm sure that you hear that a lot, they are not looking for a full design. No one can do a full design in 45 minutes. And they know that you can miss some parts when you are going through the design process in 45 minutes because of the time limit, because of tension, and because. Don't worry about that. But and at the same time, I'm not saying that you can miss layers, like you miss storage layer or compute layer completely. And I'm not speaking about achieving some requirements of they have or they put in the design scenario. Also, they are not looking for physical details, so they don't look for certain storage array. They will not ask you to give them recommendation for certain vendors. They will not ask you to use certain switch or use Nexus 5K or whatever. Sometimes, and rarely, sometimes they put you maybe a constraint to use certain type of blades or certain type of compute nodes, certain type of storage. Okay. And they rarely become more specific about their constraints, but okay, Leo, but it's not gonna happen a lot. Okay. The last thing they don't look for, best practices and validated design. Like you say, I choose fiber channel array because all of the people do it. No, you're gonna fail. I failed first time because of this. And I remember my first design scenario mock with David Pasick, VCDX number 200, when I was doing that design scenario for first time, when he put that design scenario in front of me and I rushed completely and totally into physical design. So I said, okay, we're gonna use Cisco UCS B200 M4, we're gonna use fiber channel array from EMC, VNX 7600, and so on. And he was like, okay, you are completely messing up the goal of the design scenario. Okay. And advice to you guys, try as much as possible to throw the design decision in the design defense, in the design scenario with why. Like, I did that because of this. I did this because of that. I use fiber channel array because, for example, X-Exchange cannot be virtualized on NFS. I use physical RDMs because you need SQL failover clusters, and so on. So, how to master the design scenario? I know that the word master is not the correct word here, or maybe how to practice it is not gonna be better. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is to implement, to create your methodology. Okay, how are you gonna do this? You're gonna do this by doing a lot of design scenarios in mocks and during your preparation before the panel. I might be lucky because I had 2 years of preparing for VCDX. Some of you know the story that I've been through this for 2 years and 3 months, so I had a lot of time doing preparations and mocks. But you might not have that time, but try as much as possible to do design scenarios. Most of the people focus on design defense mocks and focus on presentation mocks and not on design scenarios. You have to focus on that. Okay, you got a lot of points on that. Okay, also try to write down your methodology. I'm gonna show you an example. My methodology I created with the help of Larus, VCDX number 192. He helped me create that methodology. So I sat down with myself, created my methodology. I try to apply this methodology and my marks over and over again, updating it, reapply it, and so on. Also, the second advice I can give you is read a lot of design guides. If you notice in the first slide, speaking about myself, I'm an implementation engineer. I don't do design. I don't do design sessions with customers a lot. It might be more of pre-sales engagement, but it is rare, and I'm totally into implementation. I started from scratch about designing. Okay, so what I had to do is to read a lot and a lot of design guides, especially about three things. I wrote it down here. Business critical applications. We all know that VMware loves business critical applications, especially SQL and Oracle. Okay, so I would recommend you go to business critical application resources on VMware site and read it. Okay, I'm not saying that you have to memorize it, but I'm saying read it, understand it, and ask yourself why they did that, and find the answer. Second thing I can advise you is that multi-site topologies, active-active data centers, active-passive, DR topologies, and disaster avoidance topologies like stretched clusters and so on. If you're going for cloud, I don't know if hybrid cloud solutions topologies you can use in your design scenarios. Lior can tell us about that, but it is really important to read about multi-site topologies. Also, security compliances. I know that all of you, including me, hate security compliances. We don't understand a lot about security. VMware recently released a good guide about PCI compliance and HIPAA. And these guides are really good to read in case that you had a requirement to follow PCI or HIPAA. Unfortunately, there is no guide for such. I couldn't find it, so if you guys find it, please share it with me. Third advice I can give you guys tonight is to speak up your mind. Try to learn it and try to master that ability. You need it for your professional life anyway, to have to stand and speak your mind up. Even if you are thinking about something, speak up your thought process. Okay. Also, I didn't know how to do it. I had to stand in front of mirror or in front of wall, speaking up my design process to myself, to make it more clear to myself and to make myself get used to speaking up about my design process, about my thought process, about what I'm thinking of right now, why I think about that, and what is the purpose of that. Okay, so let us jump to a methodology I made with Lars, as I said before. Actually, this is my methodology I use for my defense. Let me share it with you guys. I will go through it quickly because it's like 6 pages on Word with a small font. I can share with you guys if you wanna. I can give it to Paul and he's gonna share it with you.
Thanks very much, mate.
Okay, so you guys see the Word document?
Yep, you can do.
Okay, is it clear, Paul? Or I have to zoom it?
Yeah, I can read it. I can read it okay. If anyone else can't, drop me a message, but I think it's okay in the screen for me.
Okay.
And I'm an old man.
Okay, so actually what I'm gonna do is that I will go through the first part, which I called here a conceptual model. It's not the correct the correct name here for this section, but okay, I will go through that. Okay, and the other layers is arranged in the order I follow. What I mean here is that if you like to go through the layers of the DCV or the vSphere layers in any other order, it's free for you. It's not the Bible. It's my way of doing things. Okay, you may have a different way. It's just a guideline. But the first section, I think, is the most common between any design scenario or any methodology, because in this first section, you have to gather all business goals, requirements, and so on. So let's quickly go through the first section. So what I'm gonna start my design scenario about is that, or what I did in my last attempt is first, I actually spoke about my design methodology, okay, quickly. Like I said, okay, what I'm gonna do, Mr. Customer, is that I'm gonna collect from you your business goals, translate these business goals into requirements, constraints, and so on, to build a conceptual model. Then I will translate this conceptual model into different layers of vSphere. And I told them also that I'm gonna start with the disaster recovery layer, then storage, then compute, then VM design, then networking design, and last thing, the management layer. Okay. So what I did is I started to get the business goals out of the slides and out of the equation from the panel. So I told them, okay, you have this on your slide as a business goal. So we have, and write that down onto the whiteboard. And the whiteboard is the measure code here. You write everything you're gonna speak about on the whiteboard. Business goals, requirements, constraints, assumptions, risks, and so on. Then, after that, I have to identify the success factors. So, what means by success factors is that I need to prioritize the business goals, because let's say we have 2 or 3 business goals. I need to prioritize which is the most important. Sometimes they may say, okay, we need all of them to be achieved. Sometimes they say, okay, we need this, the most important one, and the other 2 is the least important one. So try to determine the success factors for the design, for your design. Okay. Then start translating these business goals into requirements of different design qualities, like availability requirements, recoverability, manageability, performance, scalability, security, and cost. Okay. So here I started asking about availability requirements, a time period here. Is it measured over year or over month? Which level of availability you need? VM level, application level availability, data level availability. Okay. Also, I made here some comments about if it is 4 nines or 5 nines availability, that means a lot of budget is required. They may put you a budget constraint, so you have to take care about the conflict between constraints and requirements. Also, you have to ask about maintenance window. Is it included in your uptime or not? They want to tolerate any downtime during maintenance window or not, because the only design decision, in my opinion, that's going to result of that, use HA positive N+2 or N+1. Okay. Then I jump to recoverability, RTO and RTO. And also I'm asking here about the tiers of you are using in your environment. Like sometimes you walk into the design scenario thinking that they have a single tier of applications with single SLA, but you discover that they need multiple SLAs because they have different tiers of applications, or they have some cost constraints, so it is better to go into tiering to reduce costs, because not all applications gonna need the same level of availability and recoverability and so on. And this point, in my opinion, is somehow important because it relates availability and recoverability requirements together, which is the maximum tolerated downtime. You can find how it is related here in this small equation that the downtime per year, it should be more than maximum tolerated downtime. Okay. Sometimes they don't give you especially availability and recoverability requirements, just like this. It's not easy to extract that because, as I said before, they're gonna put you under pressure, and they're gonna act like silly customers. So in that case, you have to go in another way. You have to get these requirements from cost perspective or from business side perspective, or like asking, okay, so Mr. Customer, did you do business impact analysis? Did you do some cost analysis to how much money you're gonna lose if your business is down for 1 hour or 1 day or whatsoever, and try to come up with the SLA from that point of view. Okay, and actually most of the time it works. Actually, it works for me. So I think it's gonna work for you. After that, you ask about the performance requirements, your security requirements and compliances. Okay, and here, if they ask you for a certain compliance, you can even break that down into smaller requirements. Like, okay, they ask you to achieve PCI compliance. That means they require you to separate logically your networking, have some auditing tools, some authentication, an authorization tool, maybe some encryption in VCDX 6.5, and so on. So try to break that down into more requirements. I also asked about manageability and scalability. So what I mean here by manageability is that do they need certain management components or certain management side things in their design? Like they can say, okay, I want to monitor the design or monitor the environment for a single pane of glass. I want to have all of my hardware and software and all of that is monitored through single pane of glass or something like that. Okay, that's all about manageability requirements. Okay, I hear that sometimes they're gonna ask you to have a separate management cluster sometimes, but it never happened with me during my 3 attempts. Okay, so if it happened with you, it's fine. Okay, also I ask about scalability, get the amount of future growth. Okay, and then I do some sort of, here what is called some sort of current state analysis. Okay, it's not a wide current state analysis, it's just like asking about the budget, the license level we have, if they have any license level, if they open to use VCDX 5.5 only, or 6 only, or we can go up to a certain level, if they're gonna use, if they have hardware to use or not. Sometimes it's gonna be clear that they are using greenfield implementation or brownfield implementation or whatsoever, but it's good to use. It's good to ask about the current hardware they're gonna use. Is it supported to run on VCDX 5.5 or not, and such things. By the time you reach this point, you would have a lot of requirements listed with some constraints, some risks, and you might come up with some assumptions to fill up some gaps. And I repeat again, use the whiteboard, use the whiteboard, use the whiteboard. It is the answer in the design scenario. You will miss a lot, and you will miss a lot of things if you didn't use the whiteboard. I think I failed the first 2 times because I didn't use a whiteboard. I did it remotely, so the whiteboard and Webex sucked. So it wasn't really helpful in design scenario. I know that Lior left now. He would speak about his how he did it and his remote defense. But I repeat again, whiteboard is the most important. So I see Gareth asking about the whiteboard. So if you remember, Gareth, the room in front of our training room, they had a white whiteboard, erasable, and a sheet whiteboard. I used both. So I filled up all of the whiteboard on the wall, erasable whiteboard. I filled all of it with requirements, constraints, assumptions, and so on. Then I had no space to draw my design. So I jumped to the sheet whiteboard and drew the design onto it. I even, you know, just crossed over some or struck through some of my diagrams and repeated it again to make it more clear. Okay, I used 2 sheets, I remember, if I remember correctly. So use the whiteboard as much as you can. Write all you can on that. Okay, and also speak your process. Like, ask them, I need your SLA for this, I need your this for that, I need this for that, and so on. I'm sorry guys, I'm not so consistent in my session here because it was a very short notice. I'm sorry for that, but I'm trying to summarize all of what I had during my 3 attempts and my 3 design scenarios. I'm open to help whenever I can with the design mocks, design scenarios. I'm gonna share this document with you. I'm sorry guys, this is for 5.5 VC 5.5 with all of the info about 5.5, so feel free to upgrade it, and I may ask you if you upgraded it to certain version, VCDX or 6.5, send it back to me because I would like to keep an updated version. I hope that I gave you some important info today about the design scenario, and thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Shady. I appreciate it completely. I think you had about an hour to knock that up. So thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it. Is there any questions for Shady before we go on to a little bit of a mock? I'm just going to pinch the presenter. I'm just going to do 5 minutes because it is quite late, and I appreciate people are chatting away and probably falling asleep at the moment. So all I've done, I like mind maps. People who know me, they know that, and I do a lot of them. And what I've done, I'm going to make it available with the recording of this. Can you see this? It's kind of a summary of what I've been talking about for the last bit. Yeah. If I read it, I will zoom in. That's better, guys. Yeah. So, VCDX spent the design scenario, so pretty much from a high level. Don't bother saying who you are. They already know. They've read your stuff. They've read your bits and pieces. Yeah, they've read your bits and pieces already. Yeah, that comic stands. Say what you're thinking. Keep talking. It's like the advanced driver's test. If people in the UK know about that, just keep say what you see. Say what you're thinking all the way through. One of the most annoying things that I have as a trainer, and when I watch people do the mock, when you're talking, face the people. If the pen's touching the board, don't talk. It will also calm you down. That seems to help. There's a bit of soft skills in there. And agree to disagree. So in my defense, I can't give anything away, but of course, but a panelist could say to you, I disagree. Or are you sure? Are you sure about that? I disagree there. I don't think that's quite right. If you know the design like everyone else has been saying today, agree to disagree, but don't get upset. Just pretty much say, repeat it, give justification, and then turn around and go, tell you what, let's agree to disagree and we'll talk outside the room and smile. How you handle a customer. Answer the question only, but move on. I think I had someone ask me that during the week. How much information do you give? Give a succinct answer and then move on. If they want more information, they'll ask. Yeah. And do you really need that vendor name? Yeah. Don't keep saying vendors. Do not keep saying we. Yeah, Ballet, Dell. Yeah. Do not keep saying the vendor and don't say we a lot. You're the lead architect. You're in the room to show that you can control the place. You can handle anything coming at you. And that's basically the soft skills, yeah? Controlling the room. But the guys are professionals. So you're going to be nervous. I'm teaching daily, but I was nervous in the room. But you can look coping mechanisms seem to help. And that's one of the coping mechanisms I had was I turn my back, I take a breath, I draw something, I look back again. Yeah. So anyway, before we go on to a design scenario, I've got one made up for Brian. He's been quite happily might be a word of me asking him to do it, would be to go through a design scenario. But here's a couple of tips I just put together, which really been mentioned by the other VCDXs today in much more detail, but a summary which you're quite welcome to have. Core questions in my head. I think of it like getting up on stage and just doing a bit. That's the case. This is pretty much what this is about. You've got to get up and do a bit of design. The panelists know what they're talking about, but they're pretending to be customers. So they'll ask silly questions. I try not to laugh because the guys in the room are famous to me, and it's like, yeah, you don't know that. Okay. So things in your head straight away. Yeah. What are the links? How many sites? What's the bandwidth? What's the latency? Yeah. Draw out information, greenfield, brownfield. Then start building out, map out the whiteboard to have conceptual design, and then requirements, risk, constraints, and then start drawing logical design diagrams for each area. So I've got a little bit more detail about that here, which I'm not going to go into. You can read it yourself a bit more. But here's an example of whiteboard that I drew up. Yeah, conceptual. Requirements, risk, constraints, and pulling out the information using the core questioning technique here. Yeah. What kind of skill set have the guys got that are supporting you? What's the hour of service? What's the SLA? What's the RPO? What's the RTO? Yeah. What's the requirements for the application response time in respect to the application? What's the story that you're trying to fulfill? Yeah. And then go into for each layer that's been mentioned today, like the table that was mentioned earlier, was you got MVCNS, AMPRS, but MVCNS, the design data center levels, at least one logical design drawing for each one. Hit all of them. Yeah. So conceptual, and then bang, management plane, control plane, data plane for MVCNS. And then you've pretty much hit so much that you're probably going to hit, in this method, the whole of the blueprint. That's, a very, very quick run through, because I know everyone else has had a much more thorough information, but I thought I'd just throw that in there. If anyone's interested, I'll put the mind map on tomorrow morning so you can download it. And I think Brian's ready. Are you ready now, Brian? Are you okay to carry on? Thanks, Ash. I will put that up as a PDF and you're welcome to it.
Yep, let's give it a bash. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Yes, we're all good. So I think we've got George, who is a VCDX envy, who's going to help out here. And we've also got Rebecca, who's doing the DCA. Oh, sorry, DCV. I should know, I've got the same one. So we've got a...
You're a panelist